Today is all about getting your remodeling questions answered. Or more accurately, I'm sharing the answers to questions asked during the Q&A portion of my two most recent live classes, one back in October and one just 2 weeks ago. I've cherry-picked a bit to get some of the most universally applicable and commonly asked about issues. And I'm quite willing to bet you will hear the answer to a question that you've been pondering yourself on today's episode. Like, what is the right color for your exterior? How to choose the right mid-century tile, trim, or flooring? 3 separate questions. Where to find helpful resources? How to work with a non-mid-century focused designer or builder in your area? What project to start with? And more. You might want to take notes. Hey there, welcome back to Mid-Mod Remodel. This is the show about updating MCM homes, helping you match a mid-century home to your modern life. I'm your host, Della Hansman, architect and mid-century ranch enthusiast. You're listening to episode 2009. So, a couple of times a year, usually late winter and late summer, I update my free masterclass on planning a mid-century remodel to fit your life and budget and deliver it live. Then I put the recording on my website so that it's available to anyone who needs to find it at the moment they need it. You know that feeling. That moment when you close on your new house and wonder what the heck you're going to do. The moment when you realize another kid is coming and you'd better expand now. The moment when you realize that this is the year you have to make it happen. And suddenly you start Googling and pinning and searching for resources on how to update your house, your whole house, or whatever part of the house is bugging you. That moment doesn't happen on my biannual schedule, is my point. So I keep the recording live until I have time to do it again. But I also know that people have really limited attention spans these days, so I clip that recording at the end of the actual presentation, the end of the slide deck. And that way it's only about an hour, not too intimidating to someone who's just getting started and doesn't know or trust me yet. That means, though, that I trim off some of the most valuable goodies. I have to cut the answers I give in the live Q&A, and they kind of disappear into the void. That has always made me a little sad. So, no more. Today, I'm giving you a chance to capture all of those really juicy questions that got asked a week ago Saturday, plus a couple of really good ones from last October, and my answers. The show notes for this episode will be at midmod-midwest.com/2009. What we're going to do right now is answer all of the questions that you could possibly have right now. Before I do that, I'm just going to answer a couple of frequently asked questions that I get about houses or when it's time to start planning. A lot of people feel like it's too early to plan. I hear people, every time I give this workshop, people will say, oh, I'm thinking about joining Ready to Remodel, or I'm thinking about starting my plan, but I think we're not going to do our work until next year, so we shouldn't start planning yet. I don't want to freak you out if you're hoping to do work on your house this year. You can absolutely do work on your house this year, but if you want to do a bigger project, here we are. It's almost March. It is almost too late to start thorough planning for a process that's going to end this year. Next year, it is not too soon to start planning your remodel. If what's holding you back is a sense that you don't have the budget saved up for your remodel, you know you want to do a bigger project, but it's too early to start planning because you need to save more, I'll ask, save more for what? How do you know what your remodel will cost until you've planned it? That's like asking, how much your European vacation is going to cost when you don't know whether you're going on a cruise or going Airbnb staying or hosteling. Like you need to set the scope and have the fun of the design process first, and then you'll have a realistic research based in real world costs number to start saving harder for. And also do some of it now. Don't wait till you the entire project budgeted for in order to live in a house you like at the moment. If you feel like you don't know enough about planning a remodel, the master plan method is going to work for you because it helps you navigate those uncertainties. And if you have planned a remodel before and you're wondering if this is all too simple for you, you know how chaotic it can be to remodel at all with no plan, or even with a plan you've worked out the best you can. Let's make it a little bit easier by following a step-by-step system. If you're thinking about this is something I get all the time. I don't have enough time. And this kind of comes in 2 flavors. 1, I'm too busy. I don't have enough time to plan. Or 2, we're trying to get started immediately. We don't have time to plan. And in both of those, I would say it does not take that much time to get a huge result out of planning. If you spent a weekend going through the steps of the master plan method, you would be infinitely better off than if you just called up a contractor and got started. If you have a little bit of time over the next couple of weekends, if you want to fit it into a 3-day weekend, if you want to have a date standing with yourself on every Thursday night, you sit down with a glass of wine and you put a little of attention into your house, you can transform the way your remodel process will go from start to finish. And it doesn't actually have to take you your entire personality or all of your available free time. I know you're busy, but I want you to make good choices for your house. And I want you to get started, because a lot of other people just feel like they're not ready right now to make the changes in their house. And you don't necessarily have to make all of the changes right now. You might figure out eventually that you actually want to start with a phase 1 that's relatively modest. But if you can feel like you're making improvements and you can feel like you're going in a direction towards better results, you can start to love your house more today. Just the process of being like, I'm actually thinking about changes now will change the way you feel about your house. And then you can start to make some of those changes and they will begin to accumulate and you'll be making yourself at home in your home. Now is the right time to start. A couple of other FAQs I get all the time. Will I design the remodel for you? No, I will not. That's what I do for my master plan clients, but I will be here to hold your hand, to answer your questions, to do a layout challenge workshop with you, to walk you through the steps of the master plan method. Last question people always ask, can I enroll in the future? You can. This is no artificial shortages. You can enroll when you're ready. You can enroll later, but if you enroll right now, you don't have to wonder anymore. You can get started, you can get the ball rolling, you can jump in, take a pause when you need it, and keep going, and you can get the energy of other people all diving in to make great choices for their house. All right, I'm going to get to a couple of my pre-submitted questions. I captured this one from an Instagram chat, and I didn't get the name, but I'm going to describe the house so you can figure out who you are. Friendly person who submitted a post and beam house, 1951, located in Seattle, maybe the 4th or 5th owner, and trying to undo some bad choices that have been made. This person is in a great situation because I have a general contractor that is a mid-century house owner as well and generally understands what I'm trying to achieve. Not everybody has that, so I just wanted to shout that out as a wonderful boon. If you don't have a mid-century friendly contractor, the master plan method is going to help you put together the information you need to show a talented, good listener, contractor what you're trying to achieve. And someone who is organized and a good listener and a good craftsman can accomplish a great mid-century remodel for you if you can give them some guidance in what you're looking for. But the specific question I wanted to call out here was, this particular house has been remodeled in the past and it has white vinyl on vinyl windows. And they really kind of stand out. It's got a lot of beautiful glass in it. It is, a 60s house. Oh, no, I'm sorry, a 50s house. Post and beam, though. So it's got some big window real estate, but it's got all these white outline boxes around it. I wanted to pose a question, a suggestion. Perhaps if you said the house is dark gray, if you're stuck with white vinyl windows, which same, I have replacement windows and they have a metal trim around the outside, but I can't change that. I'm actually planning to paint the metal trim myself because I want to. But one other alternative is to match the siding to the windows. Have you considered a white house, or even a very light colored house, a dove gray rather than a dark gray, or a light cream, something that doesn't contrast with the white, but that would help bring down that contrast. What we're looking for when I say don't paint your trim a different color in a mid-century house, which I say to the internet constantly, and which I did not do in my own house, rookie mistake, so regrettable. You're trying to bring down that contrast. So if you don't want to get into painting all the windows right now, and if you can't paint vinyl windows, which is one of the reasons why vinyl windows are not a great choice, maybe the siding itself could change and then it could all feel, a white on white house can actually feel really specific, clean, and classy, as well as being a vintage appropriate choice. Your question was how to minimize the vinyl windows. The other thing is eventually to replace them. If that's within your budget and scope, that's the best way to get back to a paintable or a more friendly finish color. And for people who are choosing replacement windows, I don't recommend white or black as exterior window finishes. I highly recommend you go with something like an aged bronze. You want a dark color actually, because windows themselves, although they are transparent from the outside, they appear dark when they reflect the landscape around them, but not black, because black right now is super on trend, and any trendy choice is going to become the 2024 choice. So I like to do an aged bronze because it feels like it's in the sort of material palette of mid-century houses. And then you can do what you want with the siding. If you go dark, it will blend. If you do light, it will sort of become part of the overall mass of the windows itself and not stand out. It won't be a little white outline box. See, Britt had asked, what are some budget-friendly ways to re-infuse mid-century into a builder-grade 1963 home? And I followed up with her and asked, what is the status of the house right now? She said it's had a couple of basic finishes done. It's a little bit wiped clean. So my favorite way to bring the mid-century warmth back into a house is to try to add wood. You want honey-colored stain on a densely grained wood. In a mid-century house, it would have been pine, possibly, or walnut or teak. But pine would have been an option. Don't use pine today. Pine today is not old growth. It's not the same thing. It's not going to have the same result. So instead, you'd probably go with like a maple. Now, you could do that in terms of some new built-ins, kitchen cabinet material, panel wall, if you've already got white and you don't want to change it. Or it could be as simple as just bringing in some wooden objects. Find some vintage pieces. If you've got a mostly all-white house, you can bring wood into it with furniture. You don't necessarily have to remodel wood into it, but you want to bring wood into the house to get back that warmth of stain and grain. You might also think about a couple of key areas to put in a screen wall or some very custom but very specifically micro-located things that are going to flush the house back up with character. So rather than going with the more minimalism end of mid-century, like a globe lamp, you might want to think about something a little more jaunty, like a bow tie, or choose something like, I grabbed this for $100 at my local vintage store, this milk glass, I hate the thumbs up thing on Zoom, the milk glass, brass and wood detail here. Even if the room is very bare of mid-century details, bringing in some mid-century vintage pieces. Not like you have to live with old smelling things, but just like some mid-century details back into the house are going to start to bring back in that character. All right, one more pre-submitted question that was from Anna. Anna had asked about how do I find this tile. She took a picture of it's in the basement of her workplace and she would love to do something similar in her bathroom. I don't know the source of this specific tile, but I would recommend you hit a couple of the suppliers like Fire Clay, Clay House, Haus. I have a list of mid-century tile suppliers on my Instagram. It's all inside of Ready to Remodel. But what I would say is actually this is a style guide question, and it's not necessarily where do you find this specific tile, but to note what's going on with it. Why is it so beautiful? Well, one, it's in a stack bond pattern rather than a subway tile arrangement where there's an offset between them like a brick wall. They're stacked in a grid. They're also set up so that there's very little contrast between the tile itself and the grout between it. So in a sort of a HGT flipper update, this would be white tile, shiny bright white, and it would have black or dark colored grout to make a bigger contrast. Here it's very neutral. It's not creating a really loud effect of the pattern, but the pattern is visible. It's subtle, but it's there. The other thing to note about this is, again, if I zoom in a little closer, it's a matte finish. Mid-century houses lean into matte finishes. So you want to think about how can you find a sort of a handcrafted tile, again, not a cheap option, but look at Fire Clay, Clay House. They have, there's a little bit of variability in the stain here too, and it's got a matte fired finish, and it's slightly irregular around the edges. Those qualities are going to help you find a tile that is very close to this one. Heath Ceramics is another great source, but rather than think about specific sourcing, I want you to think about what are the qualities of this tile that you're seeing here, the proportion of it, the way it's arranged, the finish of it, and is it a factory finish color or a little bit more of a hand stained color. All of those things are going to help you to nail down something that's quite similar to this in finish. And also, it's just beautiful how much it's in the same range as this lovely wood, where again, wood into a house, this is a bit of a darker, more walnutty finish. I would guess that this workspace was done in the late 60s or early 70s, but it's gorgeous. And I really hope you can track it down. But those are some of the places I would start rather than saying, I've got a specific answer for you. I've got a range. And honestly, a range of answers is better because it's going to let you tune the budget of the way you solve this problem. You might even be able to find some seconds or some returned or something. Once you know what you're looking for, you can start hunting and bargain hunting for something that's going to meet the criteria you're looking for rather than this is the product I must have. A lot of people who see a magazine project would write to the person who did that remodel and say, what was your source for this tile? And then they would feel they had to buy that tile from that source or their project wouldn't work. But this approach, what are the qualities of what it looks like, is going to get you a lot closer and also hit your budget. Okay, let's see what we've got asked here. Rebecca had asked, is it totally bad to like gray? I love cooler colors, including grays, blues, and greens. I'm a child of the early 70s and I don't want the bittersweet kitchen that my mom had. Rebecca, absolutely. No, it's not wrong to love gray. You can love gray, you can love blue, you can love green. I love gray. I said I wish I'd paint my house olive green, and I do. If I was going to choose it now, I would have painted the whole thing dark green. I think for me, for my money, if you don't have a strong preference, olive green is the most time-free color you could paint a mid-century house. It doesn't really pick any particular moment. There are so many other sort of house color trends that nail a time. Brown, the 90s, beige, the early 2000s, gray, the last 10 years. There's never been a moment when olive green was like the color. Therefore, it's always kind of timeless. But absolutely paint the outside and the inside of your house any color that makes you happy. Color choice is so personalized, and I would never tell anyone not to paint their house a color that they love. If you have more worries about that, we can talk about it more, but yes, paint your house your favorite color. By the way, I got a question about this on the last call, and I wanted to underline it. Sometimes I also mentioned that it was an error for me to paint my trim white. I have a built-in white on the outside of my house, which is the frames of my windows are a factory finished color. And particularly for anyone who has replacement windows that are vinyl, if you've got already white windows chosen, you're going to have some white trim on your house. But you don't need to emphasize that. You can let the trim border of the window, everything other than the mechanical functioning part of the window, can match the siding, and that sort of minimizes the amount of contrast trim, minimizes the amount of cottage tweed that's going on there. Also, if you have white factory finished color on your house and you don't hate the color white, you could just have a white on white house, which is a perfectly appropriate mid-century choice and very energy efficient. Okay, second, the question about gray. Is gray a no-go? No, it's, please don't think gray is incorrect. But gray with white trim is a very cottage core flipper choice that I made absolutely because I was being influenced by HGTV and what I was seeing around me everywhere, that once I learned more about mid-century, I didn't want to do that. But a house that had gray siding and gray trim could be very mid-century appropriate. And dark gray, dark brown, dark gray are very early mid-century appropriate colors. Absolutely authentic choices. Rachel says, we live in a 1954 Southland Chicago raised ranch narrow lot with a bungalow-like layout. But while the bungalow resources are abundant, mid-century info is so scarce, despite how common it is, and the raised ranch yields limited results. Any advice on how to find good references, terms, etc.? This is the exact thing. When I started doing homework on mid-century houses, at my local library, there is a literal bookshelf on cottage and bungalow. I don't live in Chicago. Madison is not a cottage bungalow town, but we still have a bookshelf on cottage bungalows. We have a bookshelf on Frank Lloyd Wright. Literally just on him. Actually, frankly, Frank Lloyd Wright is not a bad way. His Usonian era, there are a bunch of books written on it, and it's not a bad jumping off point for a certain style of mid-century. If you like a kind of an organic modern, if you like a lot of natural woodwork and ochres and sort of neutral colors, you could go worse than taking your advice from Usonian design. But if you like more of an atomic jauntiness, you're going to look differently. The resources I advise are, I have the podcast. I've got a design library inside of Ready to Remodel. There are also, usmodernist.org is a wonderful website to check out. They have an archive of mid-century era magazines on their website that you can sort through by title and year. This takes a bit of digging, but you can find so much inspiration in what was going on in the moment that your house was built, or in your mid-century moment, the moment you're trying to go back for. This is a great way to sort of, you won't find modern products there, but you'll sort of get the style, the ethos, the materiality that you're looking for. That's a really fun place to get started. The other thing to look for is a lot of times aficionados of mid-century stuff also know about mid-century houses, or at least they are enthusiastic about them. So your local antique mall might have people that you can make friends with and chat with. And you can also just befriend your neighbors in mid-century houses, ask for tours, get into the time capsule houses, see what's going on there. I guess my first step would be, I have a resources list. I have a free list of books and websites and Instagram accounts you might want to follow, and tile companies and all my favorite resources. It's just my reading list, basically, that I got asked for so many times. I put it together in a PDF, and it's not easy to find those resources out there, but they exist. Let's see. Shelley says, where can I research what mid-century mod looked like? And okay, so this is, again, hit that resources list. There it is. But also, oh God, I could teach a 2-hour workshop on this, and I do. You might want to check out my More Than a Mood Board clinic, or join Ready to Remodel and get access to it. You might want to search for modern vintage shows, or, if you love an I Love Lucy moment or a Brady Bunch moment, you can go back and take inspiration from what was the media that was being perpetuated in that time. What are some of the materials? I would definitely hit US Modernist, hit some of those original magazines and start to pull together what you like and what you don't like. And again, when you live in a mid-century house, you might not want to live in a museum. You might not want to create a time capsule necessarily, but you can pick and choose. You can curate the ideas that you like, the colors that you like, the materials, the shapes, and pull together a vision that makes your personal version of mid-century style. And that's really the goal of the style guide system. Okay, Debbie asks, how do you get paint off stonework? Expensively, chemically, abrasively, sometimes not at all. This is why I spend so much time begging people not to paint brick and stone in the first place, because brick and stone are naturally porous materials that you have to really goober the paint onto. It gets into all these little holes and cracks, and it's very hard to get it back off of. On exterior products, sometimes people have good luck with chemical treatments, with power washing, with sandblasting. But the sad fact is that the very process that strips the paint off can sometimes fundamentally damage the integrity of the material that's there. On the inside, you're less worried about structure, but you also don't want to power wash or sandblast inside your house. I've seen people try it, hire someone to sort of tent off the area of a fireplace and work on that. But in general, once stone or brick has been painted, you're kind of living with that situation. Although, like I say, several of my ready to remodel students have been so determined as to get very close to original results, particularly on inside spaces, by getting really, really into elbow grease and chemical strippers. Let's see. Shelley says, we know we need to replace the roof. We're considering redoing this, assuming that this should be done at the same redoing the roof line, assuming these should be done at the same time, but it affects so many things. Shelley, yes. I'm going to drink some tea and answer your question. This is, I don't think I really said it when we were talking about the develop part, but this is where when you realize all the things you might want to do and all the things you need to do maintenance-wise, you can really start to get twofer or threefer or bundle benefits when you can put projects together in the right order. So yes, the time when you're replacing your roof is absolutely the time to change the roof line, to put on an addition, to put in a skylight, to bump up a gable, to get more window wall space. Whenever you're going to change the roofing material, it's going to be less hassle to do a whole change of layout at the same time. And this is particularly, if you're going to think about putting on an addition, you might want to bundle that with re-roofing, because you're probably going to end up re-roofing a big portion of the house to make it blend in anyway. So I know it gets overwhelming to think about when it affects so many factors. You're absolutely right. But it's nice to know that you're going to get all those multiple benefits out of the process. So it is, when you think it through, it does give you the opportunity to kind of think through all the things you could do and then go through them in chunks that are going to give you that benefit. And it helps justify the cost and expense of a new roof. New roof is not sexy. Nobody's like, yay, a new roof. I mean, if you hate your roof. But when you get a new roof line, when you get more space, when you get to bundle it with other projects, when you cut in a skylight and you get daylight out of it, that makes the whole project feel a little bit more worthwhile. It gives you more of an aesthetic, a lifestyle benefit than rather just, yes, I've taken care of a maintenance headache for hopefully another, depending on the roof you choose, another 50 years, another 40 years, another 30 years, another 20 years. I highly recommend you choose a longer term roof, but I know that budget pulls in on that. And I just did a podcast episode sometime this year about different roofing methodologies and materials that you might find helpful if you're thinking about new roofing. Let's see. Madeline says, what would you recommend for baseboards in a modern mid-century house? Would you paint or stain? Fantastic question. This is where I'm going to go to the program. This is going to depend on your preferences. It's going to depend on the style guide that you pull together, but both answers can be correct. In an ideal world, you'd go with stain. You'd go with, in a mid-century house, it would have been the same material as my door. Here it is. There it is. Pointing in the right direction. This is pine plywood. I love it. I bought this house for the doors. But unfortunately in this room, you can see my trim is painted. It had already been painted. I have some unpainted trim elsewhere in the house and I adore it. But whenever I'm in my office giving this example, I have to talk about painted trim because I was too lazy when I redid this room to try stripping the paint off. Stripping paint off woodwork is more doable than stripping paint off of stone or brick, but it's still a huge pain in the butt. So I decided instead to just match the trim to the wall color. What you're looking for is no contrast. So whatever you're doing, whether it's painted or stained. If it's stained, it and the door are the same stain. If it's painted, it and the wall are the same paint. It could be that you do a glossier finish for the trim and a flatter finish for the wall, but they're the same color. This might come down to a personal style preference. It might also come down to budget, because you're not going to do pine stained trim in a modern house. The pine of today is not the pine of the mid-century era. We've lost the old growth wood. We used up all the old growth wood that made the gorgeous dense grain pine that is making our houses so sturdy with their structural timber, and also so beautiful. That was more than the question you asked, but this is just advice for the universe. Is that it? Are we through all of our questions? Amazing. Well, here's what. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you showed up. I'm going to give you a chance to ask a couple more questions if you want to. I'm so glad you showed up today. I'm so glad you live in a mid-century home. I'm so glad you love it. And I want you to make strong choices for it. I want you to feel like you are empowered to be the leader of your project, and that the changes you make to your house don't have to damage its mid-century quality, might build back in mid-century details, and might also change the way you live in your house, change the way you wake up in the morning, change the way you get to along with your family, the way you have deep conversations in cozy spaces in your house. All of this is possible from a remodel. It's not just aesthetics. It's about living. And mid-century houses already live so well. They're right-sized. They're often all on one level. They're easy to maintain. They're easy to take care of. They're built so well. So making them just a little bit better is so good. Oh, one question from Justine. I'm looking to cover vinyl flooring in the living room, dinette, halls, bathroom, but I want something that looks authentic without breaking the bank or looking too fancy in my modest home. The only thing that seems appropriate so far is marmoleum. Do I have other suggestions? Okay, well, marmoleum is one of my suggestions. Again, marmoleum, laminate, definitely a strong choice. But if it feels too much like the vinyl you have, you don't have to be limited to that. I also really like cork. As a budget-friendly and also a foot-friendly alternative to wood. Hardwood floors, if you're going to go hardwood, the best authentic mid-century hardwood is going to be that 2.5-inch oak strip, which does exist today, but which is not the budget-friendly choice that it once was. It was the default, the builder basic choice in a mid-century house, which just tells you something about the way mid-century houses were built. But today, if you're going to do hardwood, you're probably going to go with an engineered hardwood, and it comes in those 4-foot-long chunks that are 6 inches wide. It does not look mid-century, but I do highly recommend cork as a wood alternative that's into this. Yeah, okay. I'm getting another question here that I want to answer separately. But yeah, so I think about cork. Think about marmoleum. It's a possibility, but if you're asking me about this, that you says you don't like it, you can also absolutely choose tile. Tile can be more expensive, but doesn't necessarily have to be. You can look for something really relatively modest. And again, when you've got a style guide, you're like, I want something terracotta and I want something in this shape. Then you can go hunting for it from the tile shop all the way up to a custom tile fabricator. You'll find it at a bunch of different price points. If you're looking for a white tile, if you're looking for a small, sort of like a mod walls, a 1x1 grid, you can source seconds, extra lots, things like that to bring the cost down. But if you're just going to put something on top of vinyl flooring, I think you probably want a click-lock floor. I think you're probably looking for, I would recommend a cork or a marmoleum as the least destructive and the most sort of foot-friendly and mid-century appropriate. Kendall says, is cork something realistic to put in a kitchen and bathroom? I have a small house and prefer the same flooring throughout. I have cork in my bathroom, and I plan to put marmoleum in my kitchen. It's absolutely realistic. Cork is a great material. It's naturally antimicrobial. It's really fun. Even if you get it in an engineered product, the supplier I tend to lean into is Iowa-based. It's a family-owned company called Green Building Supplies, and they'll send you samples and ship all over the country. Okay, great. We're getting into tile companies. All right, I love this. The flooring questions are coming. I've got the chat over here and Rebecca's putting the questions over there so I can see them both. But what was I saying? Cork, yes. Here's the thing. Yes, and if you are adults in your household and you know not to like pour out water on the bathroom floor, cork is absolutely appropriate for a bathroom and a kitchen. You just don't want to like flood the space. If you've got a 3-year-old in the house who likes to just like take scoops of water out of the bath and pour them onto the floor, you might want tile. You might want something a little bit more water impervious. But in the general course of life, yeah, cork is absolutely an appropriate material for kitchens and bathrooms, and you can run it through the whole house. Madeline says, do I recommend a terrazzo tile company? I recommend 2. My favorite high-end pretty terrazzo tile comes from the Concrete Collective. I think they might be California-based. They do really, really gorgeous sort of light format, pretty. It's so pretty. But I also have a Midwest local company called Wausau Tile. It's Wausau, Wausau. And yeah, it's not everything they have isn't as inherently stylish as the Concrete Collective, but they have some really nice terrazzos, and sometimes they do like lots that are seconds or things like that end up being very affordable. They're certainly great for the whole Midwest. They do really affordable shipping, but I think they're a good buy option even in other places. Yeah. Flooring is such an important thing to nail. It's so important to get it right. And I get a lot of questions about flooring. We haven't done a podcast episode on flooring yet. We might need to do one. Maybe we have. I don't even remember. I've been doing the Mid-Mod Remodel podcast for like 5 years now, and I do not remember all the topics we've covered or haven't. Every now and then someone asks me a question, and I'm like, check the podcast. And then I realize, no, I've literally never, it's not come up. Great. Scott says, I live in Madison. Could you come to our house? Well, what an interesting question. Maybe, but only under very specific circumstances. The way that the flow of our business is going, I only do house calls for people who are master plan clients of mine. So if you hire us to do a mid-century master plan for you, we don't even do this for everyone, but for some people we do an add-on service where I go to a house to do documentation and a consultation in person. As an alternative to that, we do Zoom consultations, and this just helps me go through the day and be able to serve my clients and communicate with my team and do all the things that are necessary. So if you were joining Ready to Remodel, you'd schedule a Zoom consultation, and we would do like a house tour. I'd have you bring your phone around and we'd look at the different parts of the house together. We can get so much out of the Zoom, and for me personally, the way that I focus, it really helps me to sort of see the house and be able to take notes on it and give you feedback in real time in that way. So yes and no. Maybe under very specific circumstances, but probably not is the answer there. Brittany asks, our primary bathroom is only 5 by 8 and was built with a toilet next to the door. How important is it for design and flow to swap the toilet and vanity? Fantastic question. That's a classic mid-century bathroom layout, and some people like it and some people hate it. Not to be crass, but some people will have conversations from the toilet where the door is cracked open and they're like whisper, whisper, or shouting back. For other people, it's like a terrible crime against bathroom layout and the worst thing in the world. It sounds like it's that for you, that latter one. So I think it might be a really good idea for you to make this switch. And drink a bit of water for a moment. And the one caveat is, if there are any original features in your bathroom, particularly if there's a tile wall that runs behind the vanity and the toilet, to choose to make this layout change is to choose to give up that tile. You're not going to be able to take it off the wall and put it back. So sometimes it is worth it to live with a slightly less desirable layout in a bathroom because it has some original quality that you like, that you want to hang on to. But sometimes that's just making the bathroom not work for you and you really want to make that swap. When you go ahead and start to make changes, you can do a lot of things in a bathroom to make it work better. If I was to go down a list of mid-century bathroom upgrade ideas, I would say getting the vanity up off the floor, a floating vanity, possibly even a floating toilet. In my opinion, the fewer things that touch the floor in the bathroom, fixtures, built-ins, whatever, the better. The more space you have, psychologically, and also the easier it is to keep everything clean and tidy. So you've got a lot of freedom to make great choices for your bathroom when you change up the layout, but it is going to require going back to the studs and getting into plumbing. And so it's a bigger logistical choice, but it might be absolutely the correct choice for your house. And how important it is depends on you, how much of a pain point it is, how much it irritates you, how much it does not feel like bathrooms you've liked better in the past. And so I would turn that question back on you. If you were on an office hours call, I'd want to ask you a little bit more follow-up, but I do want to encourage you to make a change if it feels like this just doesn't work for you. And particularly, most mid-century bathrooms are quite small. Ironically, the smallest mid-century bathrooms there was this moment in the late 50s when they started adding owners' bathrooms into owners' bedroom areas. but they did this weird compromise where the owner's bathrooms they built first are micro. They have no vanity space and a weirdly too small toilet, and sometimes showers that particularly adult men, husbands in couples that talk to me, like can't even fit into, can't wash their whole body in these showers. So they end up going around and using the shared bath around the corner. I don't know why. Well, I do. They thought it was ridiculous. They were like, it's a tiny bathroom. It's even a generous mid-century family style bathroom is pretty small these days. So I think thinking about a custom vanity that's a bit shallower, thinking about something that's lifted off the ground, these are all big wins you can get that will give you valuable inches in a bathroom. So, well, if you have an original mid-century bathroom, I want to encourage you to keep it as long as it's working. I also know that there's a lot of wins you can get out of remodeling a bathroom that's snug and small. All right, Haley says, any advice on resources for color block bathrooms? I've got a bathroom with a pinkish tub and a toilet, but a white sink that was a replacement. I'd like to track down a sink to match the pinkish palette, but I'm not sure where to look. Facebook Marketplace and Etsy. Maybe a little bit of estate sale. You can try to get lucky at your local sort of salvage yard or Habitat for Humanity restore, but you're going to have to troll the internet for the specific match. Fortunately, you might find it for free. If you just keep looking and you make it a habit to sort of scrape through some of these sites every couple of days, if you live in a major metro area, you might find someone who wants to give you the exact sink you're looking for. The other thing I would say is a couple, it might not be a perfect match, but a couple of the major, like Kohler just reissued a couple of its mid-century colorways, and a couple of the other major appliance suppliers have some vintage colorways. So if you're lucky and the vintage stuff you have is matched by a re-released colorway, you might be able to find a new sink that's a perfect match. Check Kohler. But more often than not, you're going to be looking for vintage and you're just going to be searching until you find it. Let's see. Johanna says, not sure how much insight can be shared, but I have a smallish 1,300 square foot 3-bedroom house with a tiny galley kitchen. I'd like to expand the kitchen into one of the bedrooms, but unfortunately the basement stairs are between the bedrooms and the kitchen. I'm concerned I won't be able to move the stairs to expand the kitchen. Moving stairs is not a beginner project, but it could be done. Sometimes it might be a matter of rotating the stairs. This is going to depend on structure. It's going to depend on what's happening below and how important your basement layout is to you. This might also be the kind of thing where you think about a tiny addition to move the stairs outside of the main footprint of the house, just the stairs, or shift them out of the way slightly. You could also think about if what you really need is a sense of spaciousness and not necessarily perfect flow, 1/2 measure might be to knock down the walls on both sides of the stairs and use the bedroom as an eat-in area and be able to talk across the open stairwell to it, just have kind of a knee wall that projects it. So that's a really naughty layout problem. I would really like to work on those for you in the layout challenge workshop, but I would say it's not impossible, but that is a bit of a tricksy combination, is trying to connect two spaces across an existing stair. Yes, you might be able to move stairs, but it's going to cost. And yes, you might be able to deal with a space across it, or you might be able to like relocate the stairs outside of the house. Those are my sort of 3 go-to spots I would start from thinking, but it is a bit challenging. Galley kitchens are one of the snuggest, most challenging parts of a mid-century house, but there is some possibility for you to get a better result. You're not alone in having a galley kitchen challenge. They are sticky spots. Haley says, my current basement ceiling is crappy wood fiberboard acoustic tile. What's an appropriate replacement that would be removable for utility access? Great question. So, how much do you need this utility access? It might be that you could get away with just making the changes and choices that you need to make and then drywall the ceiling. Or, as an alternative to acoustic tile, I might think about mid-century choices might have been for, why am I blanking on the name? The kind of board with little holes punched in it that you can hang tools from. That could also work on a ceiling. It would have a little bit of breathing room, and you could do it in panels that could be sort of, I would probably take it down with screws and put it back up with screws rather than have more of a daily flexibility, because you're not going to be getting to the utility space all the time, but you want to have access. Even if you did a drywall ceiling with just one panel, you could do a lightly boxed out plywood panel for a particular area you needed to access. Or you could do the whole ceiling in plywood and you could have sort of a flip down trapdoor for an accessible spot. So the possibilities are a couple, but I would ask yourself, how much do you need to access that space? And is it possible to adjust the layout, the floor plan of the basement to kind of create a contained space around that access hatch that maybe is for storage, and then allocate your social spaces away from it. But also, ultimately, if it's just a trap panel in the ceiling that you want to get access to sometimes, and the rest of the basement is gorgeous and has fun furniture and a neat thing on the floor and an accent wall, you're not going to spend too much time looking at the ceiling surface. So it's not going to ruin the effect if there is an accessible hatch there. Jenny says, updated bathroom in a 1960 house. I put a skinny mat tile in a row. Did I make a mistake? I did use brush nickel faucet. Oops. Well, it's what they were trying to sell you. So, it's fine. These are choices that are really common to make. And I have a brush nickel faucet in my basement vanity because I did that before I had made a plan for what was going on in my whole house and before I had made my choices properly. So here's the thing. If it's fine with you, leave it alone. It's fine. It's also relatively easy to replace a faucet if you ever want to. I like this mirror. I love that you've got lights on both sides of the mirror. That's a really good design feature for a mid-century, for any bathroom really, is to light both sides of the face rather than sort of the nose shadow light. And this is actually a great design for tile. You've put them in a stack bond pattern. Excellent. Putting them vertical is a bit more of a modern choice, but I think this is, when we're thinking, again, I mentioned that spectrum when you're finding your mid-century moment. If you're making a more time capsule preservation choice, you would have oriented them horizontally. But to put the same material in a stack bond pattern vertical just brings you over a little bit more to the upgrade side rather than the vintage side. Okay, then I'm getting a new question being typed by Rebecca right now. Melina, I keep getting told that I should hire an interior designer to help with my layout challenges. Is that really necessary with the program? I would say no, but it's going to depend. An interior designer does a different job than, for example, I do as an architect. Interior designers help you choose specific materials and finishes, so they will help you pick out everything from the right tile to the right sofa and the right throw cushions for the sofa. Now, this is a place where, because they are so intimately and specifically involved in what you're doing, if their taste differs from yours, you can really go off in the wrong direction. But there are mid-century focused interior designers out there. I know some of them on the internet are my internet friends, and they're lovely, lovely people who make wonderful choices. It's just kind of a question of how much hand-holding you're looking for, how much you're looking to delegate, have someone give you options and say yes, yes, no, or no, no, yes more often. Or no, please go back and do it again, which can get expensive. That is a way to work with an interior designer, but I would say that you probably don't need that kind of support within Ready to Remodel because we're going to narrow down the process of making specific choices. Once you've got your style guide set, it becomes less overwhelming. It becomes less of a task you want to hand off and get rid of to someone else. That said, you're being told this by people who may or may not be deeply familiar with what you like to do, how you want to work, and what you're trying to achieve. So I would say you should listen to advice from your friends and family up to a point, and at the end of the day, you should decide whether the advice they're giving seems like it's well calibrated for what you need. But the program, Ready to Remodel, is meant to empower you to be the core source of decisions for the process and to be able to pull together the decisiveness, the overall vision, and then maybe to go back and distribute. I've had actually people use Ready to Remodel when they're working with specifically a design build firm, sometimes even an architect. They want to do major changes, but that architect just isn't particularly mid-century focused. So they get help with the building permit process and the specificity and the coordinating with contractors, but they themselves, again, become that sort of nexus of mid-century choices and personalized decisions. And the Ready to Remodel, the master plan method, just kind of streamlines the process, helps them feel empowered. And frankly, I never really want to undercut another designer. That's not my philosophy, but I'm happy to answer questions about, I heard this from my interior designer, I heard this from my contractor, I heard this from my architect, what do you think? And I'll say, oh, I see where they're coming from, I know why they're advising you that, I would say tweak it this way and it's a more mid-century appropriate choice, or yeah, they're correct, that's the code and you're going to need to do that. How are we doing? Have I run you out of energy? We are an hour and a half into this workshop. I just want to thank you for coming out today. I got up this morning, walked the dog, and then ran on my treadmill for an hour practicing the slides for this. I get so excited by these clinics, but I love all of the energy that you've got. And here's what I want to do. If you are curious about making great choices for your home, I hope that you will invest in it. I hope that you will follow the master plan method. Like I say, you can just take everything I've given you in this class and use it like a MapQuest set of directions to walk you through the process. This is the process. No secrets, no gatekeeping. Like, this is how you do it. But if you'd like workbooks, guides, lessons, audio encouragement, pep talks, design idea library, I have you covered. I would love to share my system with you and sort of download my brain into yours on how to make this happen. And if you would like to show up on the first Monday of every month and ask me more questions about what's going on, the proper height to hang your pendants, the order of operations, how to think about what should be broken apart into the different stages of a remodel, I love to brainstorm these questions. I have a font of random knowledge that I've accumulated in the last 8 years of being obsessed with mid-century and in my experience of being a residential architect, and I love to share it. So I would love to share it with you, and I hope that whatever you do next, you feel excited to go make some small change to your house right away so it's a little bit more livable for you, and to start thinking about what is the next bigger change you're going to make and how will it fit into the overarching goal of your master plan. One more question. What time of day? The office hours calls are at 6 p.m. Central on Mondays. So that's a smidge early for the West Coast, I know, but it keeps it from being too late for the East Coast. And we do record every call. If you are a Ready to Remodel Plus student, you get access to all of those recordings just as much as you get access to come to the live calls. And so we definitely have people sometimes submit a question in advance and then I just answer it to the recording and you can watch it. But I love that you're asking what time they're going to be. Yes, that is the plan. And we are going to be, I've got some really good pep talks planned for the next couple of calls coming up, walking through the early stages, sort of taking you through a Remod Squad process of, we're going to talk about dream on Monday. We're going to talk about the why. We're going to talk, not this Monday, next Monday. We're going to talk about what's going on behind the scenes in your remodel and why you really need to make it. And then we'll be practicing what you need to do to document your house in the subsequent call in April so that in May we can do a layout buster challenge. And I am already excited for that, even though it's months away. So you've got a couple of months to get your plan ducks in a row so that I can solve all of your layout challenges for you. Or maybe you'll have solved them yourself using the draft process of the master plan method. And that's it. I'll be back next week with an all-new episode of the podcast. Find those show notes at midmod-midwest.com/2009. But I'm just going to agree with my past self one more time now. You are so right to love your mid-century home. I love it too.